Currently, we are walking on the grounds of Cal State Northridge here in the San Fernando Valley. Now, a lot of kids come to this school for higher learning, higher education. They hope to graduate. They hope to get a degree in whatever field of study that they're in school for. And then eventually some will go on to find that job. Many won't. And there's been plenty of students in the last 50 years that have attended this very institution. As a matter of fact, my grandmother, she used to work here, and this is where she retired from. And I bet my grandmother didn't know that a very, very famous Hollywood actor, or who would later become very, very famous, was a student at this very school. His name was Phil Hartman. One word that comes to my mind when I think about the legendary man that was Phil Hartman is iconic. And I truly believe that looking back on all his past achievements, that he truly was an icon. And I got first introduced to Phil Hartman during his stint on Saturday Night Live. I started watching Saturday Night Live probably in 1988 or 89 when I was about, was at that time about 9-10 years old. And of course, one of my favorite characters that he would play on Saturday Night Live was Frank Sinatra. And I didn't really know, I never really knew who Frank Sinatra was at that time. Of course, you hear their name and, you know, he'll be on the news or whatever, but I don't really know at the time who he really was. But I really got introduced to Frank Sinatra from Phil Hartman. And of course, he played President Bill Clinton on there and many, many other characters as well. He played on Saturday Night Live for about 8 seasons. And when he left, then other people, you know, they came and replaced him. And then, I don't know, from the 80s to the late 90s, that's when Saturday Night Live was really, really funny with him. Dana Carvey, Chris Farley, Adam Sandler. I mean, it was a great, great television at that time. So other than Saturday Night Live, Phil Hartman, he also played a character on Pee-wee's Playhouse. Now, I never really got Pee-wee's Playhouse. I never watched it. I did not understand why it was so popular. But him and Paul Rubin, they actually together developed a character that is Pee-wee Herman. I did not know that before I was researching this story. And also, many people may not know this, but other than being a very funny comedic actor, he was the voice acting characters for many, many cartoons that I and you would watch as children. I mean, he did voices for Tailspin, Darkwing Duck, Tom and Jerry Kids, Animaniacs, the Smurfs. And I did not know this, but he was also the voice character for Mr. Wilson, Dennis the Menace. He was Mr. Wilson. Dennis! And as a matter of fact, Phil was the voice for pretty much every adult on the television show, including Dennis the Menace's dad. Many, many, many cartoons this guy supplied his voice for. I almost want to say that this dude might have been a pretty underrated comedic genius. Am I going too far, guys? I don't know, but I really, really enjoyed Phil Hartman's work, in particular on Saturday Night Live. Now, 1973, this is where Phil Hartman graduated from school with a degree in graphic design. And later he would go work with his brother. I think his brother was like some manager or some talent scout manager or something like that. And he had an office somewhere in Hollywood. And he designed the album covers for many, 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 many bands, including Crosby, Stills and Nash and Steely Dan. And later on, after Saturday Night Live, he was on a television program called News Radio. And he played on that show for what, maybe it was about 4 seasons. He was also supposed to, before his untimely death, his murder, he was supposed to play the character Zap Brannigan on the cartoon Futurama. When Phil Hartman married his wife, Bryn, that would be his 3rd marriage in 1987, he probably, when he met this woman at a party, he probably thought like, oh, this tall, statuesque, beautiful woman with such pretty features, just a good-looking woman. I mean, who could have thought that this woman would be the person that would ultimately kill one of Hollywood's most funny guys and just iconic personalities. We fast forward to May of 1998. Now, Bryn and Phil, at this time, they had been married for about 12 years. And originally, when Bryn, who's from Minnesota, came down to Los Angeles, she came down here because she wanted to be an actress. Just like lots of other people, we want to get paid lots of money and be very, very famous. And, Bryn, she probably thought that, Phil Hartman, being a pretty big actor that he was, she probably thought that, he'll be able to get me a part in something somewhere. Now, when Phil would come home after a long day of filming, she would say, hey, did you talk to the producer of so-and-so or the director of this and that? And he would say like, oh yeah, I forgot. Oh yeah, I forgot. Oh yeah, next time. And that would really, really piss her off. And secretly, according to some of Phil's closest friends, as the marriage started slowly crumbling, they would tell him like, dude, why don't you just freaking divorce her? And he said that basically she would take half of everything he ever made. And in California, no prenup. Oh yeah, the wife is gonna clean you out. And then maybe he also really wanted to make it work, but it was gonna be almost impossible. By this time now, Bryn, who had previously been a drug addict, cocaine was her drug of choice, she had relapsed about 5 months previous. And a lot of people blame Andy Dick for offering her the cocaine that made her relapse after being clean for 10 years. But if it wasn't gonna be him that had her relapse, it would have been something else. And you couple that with being on different prescribed medication, you get Zoloft mixed with cocaine, mixed with alcohol, equals a very, very deadly situation. So May 27th, 1998, Bryn had met with a friend at this restaurant right here across the street, Buca de Beppo. And according to her friend, Bryn was fine. They had a couple drinks, had some dinner, and she didn't think anything of it. She didn't think anything weird. She said that Bryn was mentally in a good headspace. So after exiting this restaurant over here across the street, she gets in her vehicle and she would jump on this street right here, which is Encino Avenue, and she would make the 2-minute drive to their home, where a very, very violent argument would ensue. As Bryn pulls out of the parking lot of that restaurant, she sits at this light for about a minute. She proceeds, as it turns green, down this very street. And she's had a little bit too much to drink. She shouldn't be driving, but I mean, it's only a block and a half, 2 blocks at the max. So she gets home and Phil's there, and yet another argument starts. And Phil must be thinking in the back of his mind, he's thinking to himself, how can I possibly get out of this? Now, at this time now, Phil is making fantastic money, and he's cashing them checks, and he's buying himself some toys. He's bought a Bentley, he's bought a Ferrari, he has a couple boats, he bought a plane, he got his pilot's license. He's living a great life. But how do I get out of this? And which one of my toys is this cokehead gonna take? So they're arguing, their children are home, they're hearing them argue. It's another prototypical night at the Hartman residence. Phil Hartman, he says, all right, I'm tapping out. I'm tapping out, kid, I'm going to sleep. And as Bryn is looking and the alcohol is mixing with the Zoloft, I mean, who knows what honestly is going through her mind? Nobody knows. So she goes to the safe where the couple would keep a gun, a .38 caliber revolver. And as Phil Hartman is sleeping, she cocks the hammer and fires 3 times into him. One bullet strikes him in the head, another bullet strikes him in the neck, and the other bullet strikes him in the chest. Ultimately, he's killed instantly. She's looking at her handiwork. Good job, Bryn. You just murdered your husband and the father of your 2 kids. So later, she goes to her friend's, Ron Douglas's house. She drives over there and she tells Mr. Douglas, hey, I just killed Phil. And he says, what are you talking about? You're drunk. This broad is drunk now. She says, no, I'm serious. So just before 6:30 a.m., she keeps telling him that he's dead. So they drive down to this house right here. And they go inside the home, and in the bedroom is laying Phil Hartman, and a pool of blood is surrounding his head. And he's definitely dead in that house right across the street. As soon as he sees that, he calls 911 to get the cops here pronto. And the cops arrive, they check the residence, and at this time now, Bryn is inside the room. She locked herself in the room with her husband's corpse. And the police, they get the kids out. And as the police are here, they hear a gunshot. And that's the end of that.